Now, why do you say knowledge is always limited?
Because as you, as a scientist, you're experimenting, adding, searching. So you're adding. And after you, some other person will add more. So knowledge, which is born of experience, is limited.
Yes, though some people have said it isn't, they would hope to obtain perfect knowledge or absolute knowledge of the laws of nature.
The laws of nature is not the laws of human being.
Well, do you want to restrict the discussion then to knowledge about the human being, right?
Of course, that's all what we're
Or even
talking
there you
about.
could question whether that knowledge of nature is possible,
Of course,
too.
we are talking about the future of man.
Yeah, now, but, all right, so we're saying that man cannot obtain unlimited knowledge of the psyche, is that what
Yeah, that's right.
There's always more that's unknown.
Yeah, there's more and more unknown.
Yes.
So, if once we admit that knowledge is limited, then thought is limited.
Yes, thought depends on knowledge, and the knowledge does not cover everything.
That's right.
Therefore, thought will not be able to handle everything
Yes.
that happens, right?
That's what the politicians and all the other people are doing. They think thought can solve every problem.
Yes, you can see in the case of the politicians that knowledge is very limited. In fact, it's almost non-existent. And therefore, when you lack the adequate knowledge of what you're dealing with, you create confusion, right?
Yes. So, then, as thought is limited, our consciousness, which has been put together by thought, is limited.
Yes. Now, why does that mean can you make it clear that means we can only stay in the same circle?
Same circle.
See, one of the ideas might be, if you compare with science, that people might think, though my knowledge is limited, I'm constantly discovering.
But what you discover is added to, but it's still is limited.
It's still limited. That's the point, that I can keep on. See, I think one of the ideas behind a scientific approach is that though knowledge is limited, I can discover and keep up with the actuality.
But that's also limited.
My discoveries are limited, and there's always the unknown which I have not
That's
discovered.
why I'm saying the unknown, the limitless cannot be captured by thought.
Yes.
Because thought in itself is limited. And I agree to that. Not only agree, but it's a fact.
Yes, well, perhaps we should bring it out still more. That is, thought is limited. Even though one may easily verbally admit thought is not limited, there's a very strong predisposition,
feeling,
tendency to feel that way, that thought can do anything.
Anything. Right? It can't. See what it has done in the world.
Well, I agree that it has done some terrible things, but that doesn't prove that it's always wrong. You see that maybe you could always blame it on the people who have used it wrongly, you see.
I know that's a good old trick. But thought in itself is limited. Therefore, whatever it does is limited.
Yes, now, and it's limited in a very serious way, is what you're saying.
That's right. Oh, of course, in a very, very serious way.
Now, could we bring that, say what that way is?
That way is what's happening in the world.
All right, let's look at that.
The totalitarian ideals is the invention of thought.
Yes, well, we could say that the very word totalitarian means they wanted to cover the totality, but they couldn't.
They couldn't.
They couldn't, the thing collapsed, right?
It's collapsing.
It's collapsing. Now, but then there are those who say they are not totalitarians.
But the Democrats and all the rest of the Republicans and the Democrats and the idealists and so on, all their thinking is limited.
Yes, but it's limited in a way
that's very destructive.
It's very serious and destructive. Now, in what way could we bring that out? You see that I could say, okay, my thought is limited, but, well, it may not be all that serious. You see, why is it so important?
That's very simple, because whatever action is born of limited thought must breed conflict, inevitable.
Yes.
Like dividing humanity into geographically, into nationalities and so on, so on, so on, religiously, has created havoc in the world.
Yes. Now, let's connect that with the limitation of thought. That is, my knowledge is limited, right?
We said
Now,
that.
and how does that lead me to divide the world into?
Aren't we seeking security?
Yes.
And we thought there was security in the family, security in the tribe, security in nationalism. So
Yes. Go
we
ahead.
thought there is security in division.
Yes, it seems now it's come out that take the tribe for example. See, one may feel insecure now because it says with the tribe I am secure. That is a conclusion. And I think I know enough to be sure that's so, but I don't. Other things happen that I don't know, which make that very insecure. Other tribes come along.
No, the very division creates insecurity.
It helps to create it, yes. But I'm trying to say I don't know enough to know that, right?
No.
I don't see that, right?
So you don't, but one doesn't see it because one has not thought about anything, looked at the world as a
Yes.
whole.
Yes, well, the thought which attempts to, the thought which aims at security attempts to know everything important.
Yes.
And it assumes that it knows everything important, and it says this will bring security. Now, not only are there a lot of things it doesn't know, but one thing it doesn't know is that this very thought itself is divisive, right?
Divisive. Yes.
Divisive. It's going to, because I define an area which is secure and divide it from another area.
Because in itself it's limited.
Yes.
Anything that's limited must inevitably create conflict.